where you're from, and put your social media handles in the chat so that we can shout you out. Let's get connected with each other. So I'm going to read off a few names. All right, we got Danash from Peace Buffalo, from Buffalo, New York, sorry. We got D from Texas. We got, I'm going to butcher the name. We got Nashai Ketz from Florida. Sorry if I messed that up. We got Barbara Harris from Davenport. We have Councilman Khalid. Thank you for joining us. We have Amanda from New Jersey. We have, now they're coming in quick. We have Molly from Columbia. Welcome, South Carolina. We got Bruce J from Coral Springs, Florida. Welcome, Florida. We got Mikey from Portland, Oregon. Thank you guys for joining. Really appreciate it. It's exciting that we're getting so many people from around the country. So if you're just joining us, help us get the word out. Share this broadcast on your own social media links. The link will be dropped in the chat, so please go ahead and share that. This will really help us get the word out for today's call. As the call is building, I want to urge you to check out the latest edition of the Revolution Report, our weekly newsletter delivered right to your inbox every Saturday and Monday. It's a great way to plug in with our most crucial work and our actions around the country. The link to the latest edition of the Revolution Report will be dropped in the chat, so go ahead and click on that if you want to get the updated Revolution Report. Again, please tell us your name and where you're from in the chat. We definitely want to give you guys a shout out. Looks like we got Jeffrey from Untitled Coast. I butchered that one. We got Bishop from Cleveland. Welcome, Bishop. We got Rona from Texas. We got Alpana from Seattle. Hey, welcome. I used to live in Seattle. We got David from Orange, California. We got Mikey Weaver. Oh, I think I already read that name. We have Anita from Berkeley, California. Welcome. We got John from Alaska. Welcome. We got John from Hollywood. Welcome. We got Daniel from Tampa. Welcome, you guys. Thanks for joining. We got Carmen from Florida. We got Anna Marta from New Jersey. Welcome, welcome. We got Zach Smith from Albany. Thank you guys for joining. Really excited to see all these people from around the country. Before we get going, it's important to remember that our revolution is 100% funded by you, our members. Over the last 5 years, we've become America's leading grassroots funded political action organization. Together with all of you, we're fighting the corporate power and working to deliver on progressive policies that will change lives. If you're already a member and have our Revolution card, thank you very much. We really do appreciate it. If you're not a member yet, now is the time to get involved. You can sign up to become a member right now by going to the link that will be posted in the chat, and that's our Revolution link. If you're joining us by phone, press *3 and an operator will take down your info. If you're signed up to be a member, please tell us about it in the chat. We'll love to hear from you, our members. To everyone who just tuned in, welcome to our National Organized to Win broadcast. Again, my name is Andre Walton with Our Revolution. As we count down to 8:30, we'd love to hear from you in the chat. Tell us your name and where you're from, and put your social media handles in the chat so we can shout you out and let's all get connected with each other. Gonna do a couple more quick shout outs. We got Zach from Albany. We got Carolyn from Augustine, Florida. Welcome. We got Dave from Florida. We have Eileen from Arizona. We got Tom from Berkeley. Welcome, welcome. We got Terry from Tennessee. Welcome. We got Shanna from Portland, Oregon. Welcome. We got Leah from San Fernando Valley, California. Welcome. We got John from West Hollywood. Welcome. A lot of representation here today. Love to see it. Our guests tonight are organizers on the front lines of the progressive revolution, here to talk about the strategy and hard work that led to wins for progressive candidates in ballot measures and elections earlier this month. Excuse me. Our guests include newly elected progressive mayor of Cleveland, Justin Bibb, and India Walton, who nearly toppled the machine candidate for mayor of Buffalo. We also have Khalid Kamal, sorry about that, running for mayor of South Fulton, Georgia. Welcome. Glad to have them here. For those of you joining by phone or watching live on social media, jump over to our Zoom room for a more interactive experience. You can go find that by going to rrev.us/Zoom. So welcome, everybody. Gonna do a few more shout outs before we get started. Definitely want to recognize you all. We have Drew from Palm Beach County, Florida. Welcome. Got Iris from Chandler, Arizona. We got Jeff, Merkley County. Welcome. We got Regina from Maple Heights. Welcome. We got Mike from Indiana. What's up, Mike? We got Dave from Dayton. Welcome, you guys. Thank you for joining us tonight. So we're about to start tonight's important call, breaking down the latest news from the budget bill and the lessons and wins from the election. But first, a few housekeeping rules. If you have a question for our guests and you're on the phone, press *3 and an operator will take down your question. If you're in the Zoom room, put your questions right in the Q&A and we'll get to that. We want everyone to be able to participate in our virtual community here. So hop into the Zoom call if you're on the phones or watching live on social media by going to rrev.us/Zoom. With that being said, let me bring up our Revolution's Director of National Policy and Political Research, Aaron Chappell.
Hey, thank you, Andre. And good evening to everybody out there across the nation from our Revolution. Welcome to our live Monday night broadcast. I'm Aaron Chappell. I'll be co-hosting tonight's call alongside our Revolution's Regional Organizing Coordinator, Anna Marta Vishke. We've got a great show lined up for you tonight. Right now, we've got thousands of folks on the phones. We've got a few hundred people here in the Zoom room. If you're on the phones, come over and join us in Zoom. It's a more interactive experience here. Everybody's in the chat, talking to each other. Just go to rrev.us/Zoom. And if you're watching the live stream on social media, look for the Zoom link. We'll drop it in the chat. Again, though, it's ourrev.us/Zoom. So as you've heard from Andre, tonight we'll be hearing from Cleveland Mayor-elect Justin Bibb. He's going to tell us about how he ran and won his campaign on a clear message of police reform, not the easiest task. Then India Walton is going to be joining us to talk about her fight in Buffalo against Mayor Byron Brown, how that fight continues after he joined forces with the right to beat her as the Democratic nominee in the Buffalo race. We also have Councilman Khalid here running for mayor from South Fulton, Georgia. And first, let's talk about the budget bill. It's scheduled for a vote, hopefully at the end of this week. Anna Martha, over to you.
Thank you so much, Aaron, and hello, everyone. I am so happy to be back here with all of you, co-hosting our usual Monday night organizing field call after weeks of being on the streets organizing to pass the budget bill. And Aaron, not so long ago, corporate Democrats promised leadership and Biden that they would vote for the Build Back Better bill no later than this week. So let's see what happens. Our job is to hold these conservative corporate big pharma Democrats accountable to voters and to their own constituents and their own promises. And it is thanks to all of our hard work as progressives that Democrats still have a chance to pass bold improvements to voters' lives a year ahead of tough midterms. So, of course, corporate Dems are trying to hedge expectations by trotting out a new label for their feckless corporate obedience. They're calling themselves normal. Representative Connor Lamb of Pennsylvania contested himself as a normal Democrat against his progressive colleagues, who he implied are abnormal for fighting for the budget bill and its working class provisions.
So, as you know, we were fighting to hold up the infrastructure bill until we got the budget bill with its working class provisions, the full budget package. And 6 progressives stood by and voted no, held the line. Nonetheless, 13 Republicans crossed the aisle in the House to pass the bipartisan infrastructure bill without the Build Back Better package at the time. Our revolution is putting the pressure on the usual suspects to uphold their commitment to vote the Build Back Better bill now through the Senate, through the House and then to the Senate. And then we've got a brief window in that time to maximize our priorities in the final legislation.
That's right, Aaron. There is still work to be done. Our revolution, the New York Progressive Action Network, on Wednesday joined with many of our allied groups in Long Island for a candlelight vigil and a march to the office of Representative Kathleen Rice, one of the big pharma Dems, urging her to keep her promise to vote yes on the package. And tomorrow here in my state, in New Jersey, our Revolution New Jersey members and our allies will rally at the office of Representative Gottheimer, one of the original nefarious nines and big corporate Dem. Tomorrow we are going there to demand that he does the same, that he keeps his promise and votes yes on the Build Back Better bill. So if you are in New Jersey and you want to join us at this rally to demand that Gottheimer keeps his word, you can sign up at the link in the chat. Again, just a reminder, as Andre said at the beginning, if you're on the phones, you can press *3 and an operator will give you instructions on how to join us, all of us here in this progressive community in the Zoom room where the conversation is going on, and it's always better to be in community. Rice, Gottheimer to go back to them, and whatever remains of the so-called nefarious nine cannot be allowed to weasel their way out of delivering the part of the president's agenda that actually impacts voters' lives and improves our material conditions for the better.
That's exactly right, Anna Martha. This is the most critical part of the president's agenda and the progressive agenda is the Bernie budget bill or the Build Back Better Act. And these nefarious nine, the corporate Dems, have already been laying the groundwork for their excuse, for their out, saying that their vote is conditioned on the BBB getting a perfect score from the Congressional Budget Office. So they had no problem when the CBO showed the bipartisan infrastructure bill would increase the federal deficit by over over $250 billion. But now they have to get a perfect score before they're going to pass the Build Back Better Act. So as Bernie tweeted last week, this is not very consistent.
It is not consistent, Aaron, as Bernie said, and Bernie is so great at laying out the situation in clear, simple, very direct terms for everyone to understand. We do have a role in pushing back through the gaslighting and breaking through it. The budget bill is paid for by modest tax enforcements on the ultra wealthy, and we need to keep driving that point home. At 1.75 trillion over 10 years, this bill amounts to less than 2% of the GDP. We can't afford not to make these investments in our people and our communities. So again, we need to push back on the gaslighting and we need to reverse the question. What we can not allow to do or afford to do. If corporate Dems cared about fiscal responsibility, they could simply stop blocking the many sensible funding options that could actually fund an even bigger bill. We can, of course, have a billionaire's tax, for example. We can close tax loopholes. We can even just partially reverse Trump's massive tax cuts for corporations. At the end of the day, the funding is there. And it comes down to whose side are these representatives on, who they think the government should represent and serve.
That's right. And so leadership has been bending to corporate demands for cuts, for means testing. Meanwhile, our revolution and our allies fought to get more of our priorities already put back in the framework: 4 weeks of paid leave, some negotiated drug pricing. And this framework also has universal pre-K, investments in climate, in housing, penalties for union busting, affordable childcare, and other popular policies. Our revolution was particularly instrumental in getting $86 billion worth of fossil fuel subsidies cut in this package.
That's right, Aaron. So these are the normal economically sound programs that the rest of the modern world has had for decades. This is the bare minimum that we are fighting for. And this is what the majority of voters want. Our revolution's executive director, Joseph Givargis, told Axios that the people who should be worried about backlash from voters and the party are the corporate Democrats. They are the ones holding hostage the most popular pieces of the president's agenda. And corporate Dems clearly don't speak for us. The abnormal majority. Polls show that 80 and 88% of Americans want Medicare to negotiate lower drug prices with Big Pharma. 84% want to expand Medicare, and 73% want to have paid family and medical leave.
But we know upholding campaign promises hasn't been normal in Washington for some time, right? Normal for corporate Dems means hobnobbing with elites, taking corporate bribes to block popular policy, earning the ire of the working class, and then losing elections. So we want to normalize delivering for voters so we actually have a democracy and we can actually win. They're out of touch. Their corruption is crushing actual normal people. And it should not be normal for citizens of the richest country in the history of the world to go bankrupt from medical bills, to work 3 jobs, not make ends meet, to choose between medicine and grocery. These are not normal conditions, right?
This is not normal, Aaron, as you stated, but some of our representatives, such as Abigail Spanberger, for example, of Virginia, said this week that nobody elected Biden to be FDR. They voted for him to be normal. Again, that word is coming back. But Spanberger's thinking here is just a perfect example of what's wrong with Washington these days. FDR was elected 4 times because he delivered fundamental change that directly improved lives. And the last 4 decades of normal, also known as business as usual, dismantled the New Deal era and the middle class that the New Deal has created. Normal gave us the corporate rule, economic despair, gave us Trump and climate chaos, and many of the crisis progressives are fighting to solve today. And it is beyond time for Democrats to deliver. And we need you to join the conversation. So again, just a reminder, if you are on the phones, and we have right now thousands of folks on the phones and hundreds in the Zoom room. So if you're on the phone, join the conversation. We encourage you to jump over to Zoom for a more interactive, engaging experience to be with the community. Just go to ourrev.us/Zoom, and you will be transferred to our Zoom room.
So corporate Dems like to malign progressives for being unelectable, right? But we know that we're winning on bold policy platforms that actually address problems normal Americans face. So as more races have been called over the past week, now, just a week after our general election, our win rate for 2021 is up to 68%. It's pretty good for this off-year election.
That is a great rate, Aaron. I'm so proud of the wins that we have made this year. Some of them are in the state that I'm in New Jersey. But corporate media, once again, to their slide, they want to focus on setbacks. For example, on criminal justice reform, they are coming up with the example of Minnesota, while they are ignoring our success in passing reform measures in other cities such as Austin and Cleveland. We even passed the $15 minimum wage in Tucson, the hometown of Senator Kristen Sinema. Talking heads point to our underdog loss in Buffalo, where incumbent Brian Brown actually teamed up with the far right to beat the Democratic nominee India Walton. But progressives won mayor seats in major cities like Michelle Wu's amazing victory in Boston, after Puraval in Cincinnati, and Justin Bibb won in Cleveland, and he's actually with us today.
And speaking of, exactly, incoming Cleveland Mayor Justin Bibb here on Zoom with us tonight. Mayor-elect Bibb ran on police reform and a bold platform, and that his win exposes the falsity of that narrative coming out of corporate media around progressive campaigns. If you've got questions for Mayor-elect Bibb tonight, drop them in the chat. If you're on the phone, you can press *3. And remember, we're able to do the work that we do to elect candidates like Justin because of you, our members. So with all of you, we're here fighting corporate power, working to deliver on progressive policy that will change normal people's lives. If you're already a member and you have your Our Revolution card, thanks a lot. We really appreciate you. If you're not, now is the time to get involved. Sign up. The link is getting dropped in the chat. And if you're on the phone, again, you can press *3 and operator will take down your info. So with that, Mayor-elect Bibb, thank you so much for joining us here tonight.
Thank you, Aaron, for having me. Really excited to be here.
Well, you addressed police reform, the first candidate in Cleveland to endorse the Safer Cleveland initiative. You put in the work. This is your first time running for office, I believe. And now you're the mayor of Cleveland.
Yeah.
So,
It's been a whirlwind, to say the least.
Well, this is amazing. So can you tell us a little bit about what did it take to bring this home, and how did you guys win on police reform?
Well, I see my fellow progressive champion from Cleveland, Diane Morgan's on. And the biggest thing we did throughout this campaign was we were everywhere since we announced in the early days of 2021 in January. We were knocking on doors, texting voters, calling voters, doing meet and greets. I remember my first meet and greet had 15 people on it in January, and it kept growing to 20, 25, 30, 35. And it was really the intentional relational organizing that made our movement successful in this election. And the biggest thing that I think we can continue to do is we got to continue to engage voters after the election. That's how we change our democracy, and that's how we give people hope that government is going to fight for our residents day in and day out across our city.
That sounds right. I went out to Cleveland on the Nina Turner campaign, pretty early still in the mayoral race, but I saw your signs everywhere, and it was the first really good sign I had about the endorsement that Diane and folks in Our Revolution Ohio had made. It was, that's pretty good. You got coverage already. Yeah. But a little bit more about the issue of police reform and about what happened with the Safer Cleveland initiative that passed too. Can you tell us a bit about your vision about what's going on in Cleveland and what you can do?
Yeah, I endorsed issue 24 early. I was the only major candidate in the race to endorse it in the early days of the primary. And in many ways, it was politically inconvenient because the establishment did not support this initiative. But I believed it was the right thing to do. And as the son of a cop, and as someone who's actually experienced what it feels like to be victimized by police brutality in my city, I felt that this was the right issue to lean into, because when I was knocking on doors, east side or west side, particularly in communities of color, many residents of Cleveland do not trust the police. And in Cleveland, we've been a national case study on how to get policing wrong. We spent over $30 million over the last 10 years settling police misconduct claims. Since the murder of our dear brother, Tamir Rice, we've had the consent decree in Cleveland. And yet, in just 7 years, we're only at a 30% rate of actually executing the reforms outlined in the consent decree. And so issue 24, I think, spoke to the frustration that many residents across the city had with the lack of real leadership and the real honesty required to truly make policing right in Cleveland. And I believe this issue is going to be the foundational point to allow us to truly be a model for America on how to finally get policing right once and for all in our city.
Well, remember, if you're here with us on Zoom, you can drop questions for Mayor-elect Bibb in the chat, and those are getting forwarded to me. And if you're on the phones, you can press *3. So police reform is not the only issue you ran on, obviously. Can you tell us a little bit more about your vision that you're working quickly, I imagine now in this transition period, to be able to implement?
Yeah, well, I know we just finished up the climate conference in Glasgow, and I ran on a strong vision around truly embracing climate and environmental justice in Cleveland. We actually own our own public utility here in Cleveland Public Power. And that power generation source in Cleveland is the third largest carbon emitter in the United States. And we're locked into this 50-year contract that really undermines our ability as a nation to achieve the Paris climate goals. And so we as Cleveland can lead the way for this country on how to finally get climate justice right. And so we have to work really hard to break this 50-year contract. We got to embrace renewables and get rid of our reliance on fossil fuels to truly embrace our climate future. And that's something I'm going to continue to champion as a climate justice mayor right here in Cleveland, Ohio.
That's awesome. That's so good to hear. And that's, I'm sure that's going to be a hard fight, break that contract and deal with it.
But a fight well worth it, Aaron. A fight well worth it.
So Councilman Khalid here, who's on the call, running for mayor of South Fulton, Georgia, I saw just put in the chat a question about how you countered the narrative that progressives face running for office, especially for executive office. What were your opponents saying about you, and how impossible a progressive agenda is to enact, and how did you overcome that?
Here's what I think, and this may be unpopular, so forgive me, but I think a lot of time in the media narrative and climate we have right now, we focus so much on terms and who is what versus speaking truth to power to our values and connecting them to the pain, to the struggles, but also to the hopes and visions and dreams that the residents we're fighting for have across our respective communities. And in our campaign, we tried to connect our vision of hope, our vision for a better Cleveland, to their daily lived experience. It wasn't about if I'm a progressive or not, but if I was going to be a fighter as mayor, if I was going to instill a better sense of pride back into the city. And we focused on talking about the bread and butter issues facing our residents, like safety, like climate justice, like making sure when you call City Hall, the mayor's office returns your phone call. And sometimes I think we get distracted by what we see in the New York Times or on MSNBC versus listening to voters and speaking to their concerns and speaking truth to power. And so it's critical that we get back to the basics and really focus our vision and our messaging on how what we're doing as elected officials truly impact the daily lived experiences of the residents and voters we're fighting for day in and day out all across our respective communities.
That sounds right. So, we know we're an organization that believes in building long-term progressive power, right? It's never about any one election. We're so excited to have been part of your coalition and that you're going to be the mayor now. But how do we work with elected officials like you, now that you're in office, to keep building progressive power for the long run in Cleveland and elsewhere?
I'm a big fan of the West Wing. And one of my favorite characters, Toby, has this quote about changing public education in America, that we have to create a permanent revolution. And the work of creating a permanent revolution, in my opinion, doesn't stop after Election Day. It only starts when you take the oath of office. And we intend to run a permanent revolution in Cleveland, talking to voters, engaging voters, listening to their concerns, door knocking, calling voters, and making them a part of the democratic process. And I think we must do a better job as a progressive wing of the party and as a party at large of bringing more people to the table, listening more as elected officials, and making sure we give our voters and residents that we're serving the agency they need to fight for the future we all want to have across this country. And I believe with our coalition in Cleveland, we can be a model for America in the future.
I hope so. And, we're going to be there organizing with you. We look forward to the term. We know we've got more work to do. We're excited to have picked up a couple seats on the city council as well. Yes. And great. Well, join us. If you're not already a member, as we've said before, join us. We'll share the link again in chat. That's how we're going to keep building in Cleveland and elsewhere.
And thanks to our Revolution family for believing in our movement early. I won't let you down. Let's keep up the fight.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
You have a good night. I'm going to turn it over now to our Revolution's New York State organizer, Sam Gazy. Sam, welcome. Take it away.
Hey, y'all. Thank you, Aaron. I'm so glad to be on my first national call with Our Revolution tonight. And I'm extremely honored to be able to welcome India Walton, whose Underdog campaign nearly upended the establishment machine in Buffalo and has really exposed a lot of the work that that establishment needs to do in the future in order to, prevent us progressives from taking over. But she laid a great foundation for a lot of incredible work to be done in that city, and really want to welcome her to the call. And do you want to give a quick welcome before we jump into Q&A?
Sure. I just want to first congratulate Mayor-elect Bibb. What a great victory for progressives all across the country. I successfully, with my team of volunteers and with your support, unseated a 16-year incumbent who not only has been a Democratic elected for more than 30 years, but was also the former chair of our state Democratic Party, who never conceded, who rather than putting his weight behind me and voting blue no matter who, not only was placed back on the ballot, but also waged a write-in campaign that, we'll start counting those ballots on Wednesday. But, he actively colluded with the GOP, the far right and known white supremacists, to defeat me, a person who really just ran on issues. And they did that by calling me dangerous, by perpetuating photos like the ones that you see with me behind a bullhorn, but really running a fear and smear campaign that eclipsed our effort to run on the issues. But know that I am not deterred, that our campaign is still very excited. Our volunteers are ready to be mobilized and active and do the work that's required to make sure that we bring truly progressive politics to Buffalo and Western New York.
Awesome. Yeah. You just mentioned it. I mean, it's always, we see this all the time. Whenever establishment candidates, they win primaries, there's always a call for progressives to have to fall in line, vote blue no matter who. What was it like as a candidate to not be able to receive that same kind of push from the party, from the New York Democratic Party?
It really just made me work that much harder. It made our team work that much harder. I think that the blessing in that was that we had to get outside of not only the Buffalo area and even the state area, but we had to look nationwide for the support that we needed to really run a solid campaign. So I think that the blessing in this potential loss is the building of a nationwide coalition that's going to be able to better support candidates who are first-time candidates, who are progressives running in heavily entrenched districts. And I think that is the blessing that we can take away from all of this.
It was incredible to watch from across the country. I mean, seeing people just everywhere sharing information about you. And you mentioned this amazing coalition that you built. Can you tell us more about how you built the coalition in Buffalo and nationally and what that looked like?
Yeah, I think similar to what Mayor-elect Bibb said, we were a bunch of organizers. So we did a lot of door knocking. We did a lot of relational organizing. We welcomed everyone where they were. And even if we weren't perfectly aligned with folks, we were willing to work with them, to teach, and also to learn from them and really hear from the voters about what they wanted out of a new potential administration. And I think that it worked. And what we saw in the general was really a galvanizing of Republicans and conservatives and, folks who tend to turn out in higher numbers. So I think moving forward, we're going to do a lot of more focus on that GOTV and really compelling people to not rest our laurels on primary wins, but to make sure that we get out and really solidify our wins in general elections as well.
Definitely. So Jay Jacobs, who's the chair for everybody in the New York State Democratic Party, he actually compared you, as you mentioned, to David Duke, which was a horrific comparison. And I actually was rallying with activists outside his office the day after, demanding him to resign. There have been a lot of calls for him to resign from party chair in the state just because of this instance and many, many others, as you're very familiar with. One of the core pillars of our revolution is transforming the party, just for this reason, a lot of others. So where do you see this specific fight happening, and what can be done to make elections fair for progressive candidates?
Yeah, there's a vote of no confidence happening right now for Jay Jacobs, not only because of my race, but, the propositions that we had to expand voter rights in New York State that he failed to support. We lost big time, right? Because corporate Democrats are trying to maintain and protect their power. And, after he compared me to David Duke, the Buffalo News then doubled down and said, well, maybe not David Duke, but she's definitely just like Donald Trump. There is something about corporate Democrats that we just have to overcome. And I'm not exactly sure what that is, but I'm committed to spending the next 4 years building our base, getting our young people active and engaged, making sure that people make it out to the polls and making sure that we come out stronger than ever. And next time getting ahead of these scare tactics and these narratives that were placed on top of us. And not having to be put in a position to constantly be responding, but to be able to proactively communicate what our vision is to voters.
Great, yeah. And what are your plans for the future? What are your plans for the next coming months, especially as you continue, working with the base that you built in Buffalo, and what does the kind of future look like for you there?
Yeah, I'm gonna get some rest. I'm gonna spend some time with my children while we were having our briefing, because we go into our final canvass on Wednesday. All of the votes have not been counted, right? I lost to write-in. There's no name. We don't even know how that's divvied up. There were multiple write-in candidates. So we affectionately called this the longest campaign ever. But the next 4 years, I'm going to be base building. I'm going to be doing as much learning as I can, building and expanding my network, but also teaching first-time candidates, sharing what I've learned with movement candidates. It does mean something to have to go from organizer and activist to a political candidate. So I really want to be able to share the knowledge that I've gained over the last year with other folks who are looking to run for the first time, or to kind of pivot from the activism role to a candidate role.
Awesome. Well, India, you have a lot of fans in the Our Revolution family, especially in New York. Speaking as somebody who lives in the city, the amount of folks that traveled up to the city to go support you've got a lot of love throughout the state, and we are extremely excited to be able to support you in any endeavor, any work that you're doing up in Buffalo, throughout the state. We are there. So just let us know at the drop of a hat. We'll be there for the next fight. But of course, let's count the rest of these votes, and also let's make sure you get some rest before the holiday season and everything. And I just want to thank you so much for joining us, for just being the fearless fighter that you are, going up against taking on such an incredible challenge, and being so successful in the work that you've done, and laying such an incredible foundation for future organizers and future folks like yourselves to become the future of the party. With that, I'm going to pass it back over to Aaron, who's going to give us some action steps.
Well, thanks, Sam. And thanks so much, India. I'm sure everybody here would be happy to learn from you too. So, let us know what you're doing next. We'll all sign up for that, for your organizing class. And thanks a lot, Sam. And so I just want to announce that Our Revolution right now is proud to launch a new effort to remove Byron Brown from his position on the Democratic National Committee based on the shameful behavior that we just heard about, that we've been following in this election, right? No one who runs against the Democratic candidate in the general election should be allowed to hold a position on the Democratic National Committee. It's insane. Allowing Brown to keep this position is a bad precedent. It's bad for future progressives in this position. Can you imagine, if Bernie had done this in one of the presidential races, if Nina Turner had done this after the race in CD11 in Ohio this year, how much flack progressives would be getting for that kind of thing? And here is Byron Brown with his position on the DNC. So to everybody listening on this call right now, we're going to drop the link in chat. Join us right now by signing our new petition and saying, if you hold a position in the Democratic Party, you got to respect the Democratic Party's primary elections. If any of you listening right now are also hold positions in the party, sign that petition and let us know what that position is. We want the party to hear from us at all levels that this behavior is unacceptable. So again, that link is getting dropped in chat. And thanks again, India. We look forward to continue to work with you in the future. Over to you, Ana Marta.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Wonderful guest so far. And yes, the party work is super important. We are organizing to transform the party from the bottom up here in New Jersey as well. We have county committee elections coming up. So looking forward to that organizing work. So glad to see that New York is is investing and organizing in these essential critical races to transform the party to become a more democratic party to really represent us communities and the voters. So last but not least, let's turn our attention to our last guest, Khalid Kamau, who is running for mayor of South Fulton, Georgia. He is challenging an incumbent for the mayoral seat from the left. We love it. We support it. Don't forget, if you have questions for Khalid Kamau, drop them in the chat, or if you're on the phones, you can always press *3 and someone will take your questions. So welcome to the call, Khalid.
Hi.
Great to have you. We have had you in some other calls as well when you were running for city council. Right now you are running for mayor, and voters in the city of South Fulton will head back to the polls November 30th for a runoff election between yourself and incumbent mayor Bill Edwards. In the November 2nd election, Edwards came in just a bit ahead of you. Now tell us what needs to happen in the next couple of weeks to get you over the top to defeat the incumbent in the runoff election.
Hey, thank you so much. First, I need to say what needs to happen is honestly what you all are doing here right now. I am inspired to tears by both Justin and India. It's just so important to see examples of us winning. So thank you all for finding and promoting those of us that are running in these little races. The next thing is that people, wherever you are, can give. You can go to my website, khalidcares.com. You can volunteer to phone bank. I need phone bankers. I think we're going to work and maybe set up a phone bank through Our Revolution. But letting people know, the city of South Fulton, I don't know if you can throw that first slide up, but the city of South Fulton, for those of you all who don't know, it's a brand new city. It was formed in 2017. So the city itself is only 4 years old. And you can see this sort of crazy map with all these gerrymandered parts annexed out through the middle. Lots of people don't know that the city of South Fulton exists. And there is currently also a race for the mayor of Atlanta. So that's one of the biggest challenges right now is that, I say I'm running for mayor. They're like, oh, you're running to replace Keisha. And I'm like, you don't live in Atlanta, dog. But we're in this Atlanta metropolitan area. So sometimes that political education that India talked about is so important. As an organizer who I came from organizing, I continue to do that political education. So many of us don't know about our local municipalities and the action that is happening right down the street from us, where you can go and watch a council meeting live because the news just doesn't cover it. Our newspapers have been decimated by, these capitalist oligarchs and these companies that are just selling them out. So we just don't have that sort of political education anymore.
Khalid, it's so great to see that left-leaning candidates like yourself are targeting these municipal races, because that's where we take back power for the working people. And we have won so many council races just this election cycle. So we are proud of you that you are taking one step further. I want to ask you a little bit about your background. We know that you are an attorney, but also you are an activist, as you mentioned, who has worked several blue-collar jobs. You were a bus driver. What inspired you to run first for council and then now for mayor?
What inspired me to run for council was Bernie. Bernie said, you gotta get out and run. But I am also inspired because this is where I realize we talk about these big issues like reparations or dismantling the American military or decreasing the size of the military. But the best way to learn how to make those arguments and also to show how those arguments work is to do them at the local level. When we start creating policies that increase equity and decrease income inequality, then these sort of big terms that seem really radical at the national level, when you start talking about universal basic income or police reform, if you can reform a police department, then you can then imagine reforming the military, which is just the police department for the entire world, right? And so that's what inspired me.
great. That's inspiring us. What elements of your platform, as you're out there talking to voters, as you're canvassing, knocking on doors, do you think are resonating most with your community, and why?
All right, so if you can go to that third slide, I love doing this political education. Many people don't know this, but just like our military takes up the majority of our budget, in most of our cities, police take up 25 to 35% of our budgets. You know, in the city of South Fulton, we are spending 30% of our budget on police and less than 1% on economic development. Just putting a graph like that of our budget and showing what we were spending, you know, policing people versus like developing economic opportunities just woke so many people up. They had no idea. They had never looked at their city budget. It's not something that you see on the nightly news again. So that is really resonating with people. We had this speed camera program. We installed speed cameras in these school zones, and they issued these $150 tickets. And it's supposed to be like, you know, for safety for kids. We named it after a young lady that got hit in a school zone. So it seemed like this very good idea. We came to find out that the for-profit company that we signed the contract for, that we are locked into, writes the tickets 24 hours a day. So nights, weekends, when school is not in session, and the tickets are $150. We didn't have the right signage. We found out that we made in 9 months $4 million off the back of our residents. And the first thing that we went out and bought was a SWAT tank, because we gave all the money to police. We didn't give any to actually putting in speed bumps or sidewalks or other pedestrian safety measures. And when people find out things like that about how their money is being spent at the local level, it really ignites a fire.
That's right, Khalid. Again, just wonderful to hear you talk about these local issues. I think these local seats, the council at the mayoral level, are the closest to the issues and the policies that people care most about. So we are so proud of you for stepping up, first to run for council and now to run for mayor. We are fully behind you. We will support you as we have in the past. Good luck to you, and thank you for joining our call. We'll see you hopefully on the next call when we celebrate your win.
Yes, when we organize, we win.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again. And back to you, Aaron.
That's right. When we organize, we win. And we're grateful to our members who support Makes Our Revolution, the largest grassroots independent political organization in the country. So if you're on and you're not a member yet, sign up now. We'll keep dropping the link in the chat. The bigger we get, the more power we wield, the more wins we can deliver, the more we can support people like the candidates and the elected, the mayor-elect that you've heard tonight. So once you sign up, tell us about it in the chat. We want to hear what's going on. And if you're on the phone, remember you can always press *3 to get an operator. We'll take down your info. So thanks a lot again, Councilman Khalid, and back to you, Ana Marta.
All right, so upcoming events and calls to action is the section of this Monday night field organizing call that I love the most, because this is where we move our agenda forward together. So pay attention, everyone, and sign up on the links in the chat. We have some great actions and great events coming up. Our revolution, in coalition with the People for the American Way, Declaration for American Democracy, Black Lives Matter, the Democracy Initiative, the Future Coalition, and the League of Women Voters. This is a powerful coalition. So we are continuing the fight for the freedom to vote. Our final freedom to vote rally is this Wednesday, November 17th. We are prepping at 9:30 right outside the Capitol Hilton in DC at 16th and I'm not sure of that street, but it's Northwest. We'll drop the link in the chat and you can find the address in the Mobilize link. Join us so we can march together for the freedom to vote and engage in civil disobedience. We have about 100 people who are going to engage in an act of mass civil disobedience to make sure that we protect democracy.
And the clock is really ticking on this issue, right? As states are finalizing their redistricted maps, this is our final Freedom to Vote rally in November. We hope it's our final one ever, because finally the Senate will act and pass this bill. If not, we'll be back after the holiday, right, with more, because we really have a short timeline to make a difference by passing the Freedom to Vote Act. Meanwhile, join us on Wednesdays in December, the 1st, 8th, and the 15th at 8:30 Eastern for a 2022 endorsement process review session for folks who are leading chapters on the endorsement committees out there in local, state, Our Revolution chapters. So come to one of these before we make our endorsements in 2022 races. We need a member of your group to join us for one of these reviews before you make your endorsements, so that we can all get on the same page and figure out the best plan to win in 2022. That link is getting dropped in chat. Ana Marta.
All right. Thank you, Aaron. And then we spoke about the budget at the beginning of our call. There's still work to do. We need to close the deal. We need to bring this home. So join us tomorrow in New Jersey. We are gathering in Glen Rock in front of Gottheimer's district office at 12 o'clock to urge him to keep his word and vote in favor of the Build Back Better Act. It's a wonderful coalition we put together here in New Jersey. We have been going out to that district office all throughout the summer. This is, I think, going to be our 8th rally and hopefully the final one. So sign up in the link that's going to be in the chat.
And on Wednesday, join Our Revolution Ohio's November call with special guest Morgan Harper. We'll be getting updates on fair districts from Trevor Patrick Martin, HB 109, the anti-protest bill from Reverend Joan Van Kalari. Plus, we'll be unveiling the latest project, which is Transforming the Party in Ohio, with Will Petrick from Rep Your Block. Link for that is in the chat.
And we are continuing our great organizing in New York, in Manhattan. Our chapters are forming a borough-wide chapter to have more power as we continue to fight for progressive policies and to elect progressive candidates in the city. So on Thursday, we are launching a new borough chapter, the Manhattan chapter of the Our Revolution New York Progressive Action Network. We'll be joined by amazing speakers and some special guests, Jumani Williams, Zephyr Teachout, who announced today that she's running for Attorney General, an amazing candidate. Mark Levine is going to be there, Harvey Epstein, and more. The link is in the chat. It's going to be a fun event. This is in person. So if you are in the city, come on out.
And that is it for tonight, folks. We will see you back in a few weeks after the holiday. And as always, we want to close our call with the most important lesson I think we heard from all of our speakers tonight, which is when we organize,
we win.
When we organize,
we win.
When we organize,
we win.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Hi, everyone.
Recording stop.